It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Wednesday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Our featured story, we're talking a little bit more about this insurrection in Minneapolis. Huge news in Congress. We were supposed to talk about this last night. We ran out of time. But we are facing on Friday a major deadline in a series of appropriations bills that will fund various departments and agencies in the federal government. $1.7 trillion spending package. And like every other major piece of legislation, this is going to require at least 6 Democrats to vote with the package. The big news that came out today, Chuck Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, came out with a list of demands. He says, speaking on behalf of the Democrats, they will not supply the votes for Homeland Security for this spending package unless we defund ICE, force them to take off their masks, end random raids and other roving searches for illegal immigrants, among other things. They're basically going to shut down, through Congress, everything that we've seen so far with ICE, Border Patrol, to the extent that there are deportations, doing the mass deportation policy. And it seems that Republicans are going to balk on this one. They might cave on some of those demands. We're going to talk all about that. We'll get into the shutdown. We're also going to talk tonight about some brand new footage. Well. Have you seen this? And I feel like this didn't even go super viral, but I believe today is the first time that it gained any traction. We now have newly resurfaced footage of Alex Pretti, the anti-ICE protester who was killed over the weekend, from 2 weeks ago, earlier in January. And maybe you've seen it. The video's out there. The video has actually been out there for weeks, but it's just now getting more attention because of what unfolded over the weekend. And this new video shows that Alex Pretti was in a confrontation with ICE earlier in the month where he spit on ICE officers, kicked their vehicle as they were attempting to leave, and actually broke one of their taillights. Big shocker, big surprise. Here's the best part. So he spits on ICE, kicks their car, breaks the taillight. A couple of ICE agents tackle him, hold him down for 10 seconds. They get up, they split. He's got a gun hanging out of his waistband, just like he had over the weekend. Is anybody surprised to see this? Is anybody surprised to learn this? So, as a matter of fact, it turns out that if you confront ICE with a loaded gun in your waistband, you might get lucky. One time, maybe a few times. Well, if you keep pushing your luck, eventually an accident is going to happen. Does this not prove that this guy just rolled the dice one too many times, paid the price, forfeited his life? And I wonder, I'm eager to see the reaction of all of his defenders, eager to see the reaction of everybody that was so sympathetic and sorry about the tragedy. I don't know. I think that if you are regularly getting into physical altercations with federal law enforcement, getting your ass kicked and thrown to the ground, if you are assaulting federal police and you are armed with a loaded gun, you know, eventually something horrible is going to happen. I don't think that's crazy to say. I don't think that represents fascism, government overreach, whatever it has been described as. I think that's just common sense. How many times you want to play that game? How many times have you gotten in a physical altercation with federal law enforcement where you are assaulting them, attacking them, vandalizing their car, getting thrown to the ground, and you're carrying a gun? How many times has that happened to you? And how many times would you expect to get away with that before something horrible happens? I don't know. I think that's reasonable. We're going to talk all about it tonight. Before we do, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. Check out our merch store, Fuentes.store, and remember to subscribe and become an America First Plus member at americafirst.plus. We have a few different tiers. $100 a month, you get to be in a group chat with me. I was dropping a lot of heat this morning in the group chat, leaving some voice memos, doing some bonus content, talking all about Iran, immigration, the Trump administration, everything we've been talking about, but going into some greater detail and some behind-the-scenes stuff. That was this morning. But if you subscribe at the $15 tier, you get access to all my content, plus MP3 format for the show as well. Okay, with that, we're going to dive in. One other thing that I wanted to touch on before we get into it. Did you see this on Twitter yesterday? So I told you last week on Friday, I think I spent about 30 minutes going off about this because it was kind of a slow day. Of course, there's this huge winter storm that is sweeping the mid-Atlantic, the South. I guess it's even now in Florida. They're saying it's 32 degrees in Orlando. And predictably, all the usual suspects, all of your conspiratard QAnon boomers, your low IQ anti-Semites, all the usual suspects late last week were saying that the winter storm in winter is actually some kind of government psyop. The government manufactured the storm. The government has some sort of ulterior motive. They're creating the storm to vaccinate people or something. I don't even really know what the end game is here. It seems like it's a natural disaster. I don't even really know actually what the end game would be for this one. But I saw this all over Twitter. For whatever reason, this was being promoted on my timeline. I saw it late last week, and I went off about it, like I said, I think either on Thursday or Friday. Every other post on my timeline was some nut job saying, film the skies, take pictures of the sky. This isn't normal. They're talking about there's chemtrails, and they're saying that the number of chemtrails is abnormal, and that indicates that the government is preparing the way for the storm. And then I saw people over the weekend, they were saying, take samples of the snow, send it to a laboratory. That's an actual post that I saw. Somebody said, go outside, get a sample of that snow, and bring it to the lab. And I'm thinking, like, what lab? Like, what are you talking about? Who are these people? And I wasn't the only one. All these confused boomers were in the replies. All these psychic victims of the internet are in the replies, and they're saying, what lab? Where do I go? Tell me where I can take it. Yeah, bring it to your local retard lab. And like always, people are setting the snow on fire. They're burning it to suggest that the snow is not real snow. People are collecting samples of the snow, and they are performing experiments on it. And there's no hypothesis. They're not actually observing the physical properties of frozen water or water in a solid state. They're just making these conjectures and saying, well, if I use a torch, if I use a lighter on the snow burns. That means it's plastic. This isn't real snow. It's not like the snow I grew up with. This is government snow. This is Illuminati snow. I'm seeing this all weekend. I think I'm going crazy because I don't see anybody even mentioning this. It's totally insane. Like, we have a problem. Conductor, we have a problem. This is all over Facebook. It's all over Twitter. Goyim have gone insane. Here's the best part. This was the highlight. And this made me feel a little bit better. Yesterday, Candace Owens wades into the conversation. Candace Owens, after she gets her internet and her electricity back, she lives in the middle of the storm. She logs on to report her findings, her observations. The mommy sleuth, that's what they call themselves on her channel. Sherlock Holmes, the top investigator, she went out to look at her backyard and she said, I see all this ice on my deck, on the trees, the power lines. She said, I grew up in Connecticut. I've seen ice my whole life. I've never seen ice like this. She says, it's 30 degrees and I don't see this water, or rather, I don't see this ice melting at all. She says, it's not even dripping. She says, it's 30 degrees and the ice isn't melting. 30 degrees, it's not even dripping. She comes back, she doubles down, she jumps in the replies and says, it's more like dry ice than real ice. She says, I reiterate, it's 30 degrees and the ice isn't melting. And everybody points out the freezing point for water is 32 degrees. So if it's under 32 degrees, then water will be frozen. If it is over 32 degrees, then water will be liquid. These are the chemical properties of water on planet Earth. And actually, I think in the universe, these are the chemical properties of water in its various states, as a solid, a liquid, a vapor. People quickly pointed this out. They said, Candace, that actually makes perfect sense because water does not begin to melt. Frozen water, otherwise known as ice, does not begin to melt until the temperature reaches 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And let me tell you, here's the best part, because a lot of people miss this. So she got community noted. Everybody's laughing at her. The community notes say, okay, water freezes at 32. And everybody's pointing this out. I think a lot of people miss this. And I was driving around today and it dawned on me. I said, so we can learn two things from this. Number one, clearly Candace Owens does not know that the freezing point for water is 32 degrees, which is, how do you not know that? You're a 35-year-old adult. You're living in the United States. It's not like we're in Ghana. It's not like we're in the Sentinel Islands off the coast of India where the scientific revolution hasn't happened yet. It's the 21st century. We live in the United States. You live in an industrialized nation with literacy and universal education. You're 35 years old. How do you not know? I mean, this is like the basics. I think everybody knows this. 32 degrees is when water freezes. That's like 101. Like, are you smarter than a fifth grader? But then I was thinking further. So one, we now know for a fact she does not know that water freezes at 32 degrees, which is kind of insane. But here's what's even better. You have to wonder, what temperature does she think water freezes at? If it's not 32, what do you think she thinks it is? And I had sort of an epiphany while I was driving. I thought, she probably thinks it's 0. Because what else, if you don't think it's 32 or you don't know it's 32, what would you guess it is? And if I had to speculate, I would say she thinks it's 0, because the way that she said it as though it was so self-evidently suspicious. She said, it is 30 freaking degrees and the ice isn't melting. What's going on, guys? She said, and I will say it again, 30 damn degrees and the ice isn't melting? Who has ever heard of such a thing? Like, she said it like she was outraged. She said it like it was so ridiculous, like it was unheard of. The way that she doubled, tripled down, 30 degrees and water is still frozen. I mean, come on. Like it was self-evidently outrageous that this is going on. And I think the only conclusion you have to draw is like she thinks water freezes at 0 degrees. And if you think that would be insane. If you think that water freezes at 0 and it's 30, you'd be like, okay, what's going on here? It is 30 degrees above the freezing point of water, and there's not even a drip. There's not even a trickle. And that's why maybe you'd go and post that. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably what's going on. And in which case, you go, why does anybody listen to this person? Here's the best part. She's on her show a couple weeks ago. She goes, I don't know why anybody listens to Nick Fuentes. He's a theater kid, and grown men should not listen to flamboyant theater kids, blah, blah. Okay, let's, for the sake of argument, accept this idea. Well, if that's the case, I think you definitely can't be listening to somebody that doesn't know the physical properties of water. Like, she goes, grown men can't listen to this guy. This is some entertainer. This is just some frivolous performer. Okay, you don't know that ice is created at 32 degrees. I think that's a little bit of a bigger issue, don't you think? And anyway, so she gets community noted twice. Everybody's talking about it. She comes back to do a little damage control. Get a load of this. She says, well, I should have mentioned that my deck is 10 degrees warmer than the rest of the neighborhood. That was her idea of damage control. She didn't come out and say, oh, my bad, I'm a dumb idiot. She comes out and her damage control, she replies to somebody and says, oh, I should have mentioned my outdoor deck is always 10 degrees warmer than the rest of the planet. She said, so actually it's 40 degrees on my deck. Whoops, left that part out. She goes, the temperature gauge on my deck, you mean your thermometer? Like, I said it the other week, you can't argue with a crazy bitch because then it just makes you crazy. You're sitting there arguing with a woman, first of all, but then you're arguing with a woman who is saying this stuff. It's like on Fresh and Fit when they go to one of the girls and they say, name 3 countries, and they go, Africa, Paris, you're dealing, first of all, you find yourself arguing with a woman, big mistake. Second of all, you're arguing with a woman who doesn't know what she's talking about. Then you just get further into it. She goes, oh, well, my deck is 10 degrees warmer than everywhere else. According to the temperature gauge, you mean your thermometer? Okay, I guess. Like, I told you, I have been saying this for years. She's just dumb. There's this new Twitter account, Candace Owens Can't Read. And every day, how many words are we up to now? So far, we got, she can't pronounce compartmentalize. That's compartmentalize for her. She can't pronounce legitimize. For her, it is legitimatize. She can't pronounce architecture. For her, it's architecture. Today, the new one is debacle. She pronounces it debacle. Debacle. We got a little debacle about our temperature gauges. Why isn't this water melting at 30 degrees? I mean, this delegitimizes the damn ass weather, for crying out loud. I don't know, man. I've been telling you for years, she's not smart. And that's something you can't hide. There's a lot of things that you can get away with in show business. There's a lot of things you could get away with if you're in front of a camera. If you are straight up a dummy, you don't know what you don't know. You can't possibly prepare to do a show and go through everything that you do not know and all the things that you think you know, but you don't really. Like, there's no way to sit down and say, wait a second, do I know the freezing temperature for water? You can't prepare for that. You can't go live and say, am I pronouncing the word debacle correctly? You just can't. How can you prepare for that? If you don't know it, you don't know it. You can't know that you don't know it. You're just, and I mean, people get away with being dumb online. You got to be really dumb for it to be that aggressive. Holy. Anyway, so I saw that today. I was like, wow. And she's got one of the biggest podcasts in the country. What does that tell you? I've been saying it for years. The biggest red pill is that most people are fucking retarded. That is the biggest red pill. If you are an intelligent person, the biggest red pill you will find, and I think most people sort of know this, but you really need to process this, is that most people are completely retarded, because what does it say about the country that this is one of the most popular podcasters that is around? By far. It ain't even close. I mean, she's got millions and millions of downloads on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. People are signing up in her like army. And it's like this every day. History, pronouncing words, science, just basic stuff. And you go, how are people not catching this? But I mean, this is the type of crowd that watches Sean Hannity. It's the type of crowd that thinks Kai Cenat is really funny. It's like Kai Cenat not being able to read. You go, who is influencing the population? How do people watch this? And you go, they're even dumber than the influencers. Probably Candace Owens' audience is even dumber than her, and that's scary. That's disturbing. I see another clip from the other day. She's arguing with Bill Maher about the moon landing. Bill Maher said, well, we went back to the moon a bunch of times. She goes, we did? He goes, yeah, we went back to the moon like 10 times. She goes, oh. It's like, well, okay, what are we doing? Like, what do you know? You don't know anything. Anyway, so that's that. I just think that's totally insane. I feel a little sorry for her. I'm sure it must be embarrassing, but I want to move on. I want to get into our news for the night. That's just a little levity. And at first, I want to get into the story about Alex Pretti. I mean, this is just delicious. So as you know, we are in another Holocaust. Trump is another Hitler. ICE is the new Gestapo. Illegal immigrants are the new Jews. And this is just shutting the whole country down. It's grinding the country to a halt. We've been covering this now for several weeks, and we are thoroughly in a phenomenon. Let's be very clear about what this is. There is a massive, organized, concerted effort to prevent mass deportations. We're in a war here. And it's sort of a complicated picture because on the one hand, you have the Trump administration that is not even really doing mass deportations. It's not even really happening. And we've talked about this in great detail. And if you want more of that, you can watch my show from last night and the night before. But the best available estimates say that the Trump administration only deported about 230,000 people last year, which is really not very much, especially in light of how many people have crossed the border illegally in just the past 5 or 6 years. In the first Trump administration, in the Biden administration, this is really nothing. And what's more, even this year, in a year where the border is absolutely secure, you might be getting anywhere between 20,000 to 100,000. It's hard to estimate it, but you might be getting somewhere around, let's throw a dart in the middle of it. Let's say you got 50,000 illegal immigrants that you could call gotaways, people that slipped across the border without being detected or apprehended. When you think about the fact that you cannot completely control irregular, illegal migration into the United States, at the end of the day, on net, how many people are you actually removing? Is it 180,000? Is it 150,000? It's 230,000 at the absolute most, but it could even be fewer than that on net. And when you take into account that under Biden, we were talking millions coming across every single year, there's nothing massive about this. It's not systematic. It is not massive. It does not reverse even the worst years of immigration that took place in the last administration under the predecessor. So this is why I say the picture is a little bit complex. It's not even really a massive deportation. There's sort of this open-ended question about whether there will be anything like a massive deportation. There seems to be an element inside the administration that is trying to make it happen. There are good people at ICE, at DHS, at Border Patrol. They want mass deportations, and there is an effort to get those resources to do it, to build the detention capacity, to hire the requisite personnel, train the existing personnel. There are lawyers working on the legal remedies when they get an injunction from a judge or when they run into some of these problems. like when they deport the wrong person, which there were a few high-profile cases like this. And so there does seem to be an effort inside the administration to follow through on this. There is extraordinary pressure from Trump's political base, from the voters, to follow through on this. At the same time, Trump is either completely unwilling or completely unable to actually satisfy these demands. Unwilling because there is pressure from the Chamber of Commerce, there is pressure from Wall Street, from Silicon Valley, from big agriculture, not to actually follow through. And it's also a question of competence. There's a faction inside the White House that wants it. It's debatable what side Trump is really on. There's also a very strong faction that is trying to shut it down. And maybe it's simply for lack of ability that Trump is not able to follow through. In any case, it's sort of interesting that one of the sides isn't even really a coherent side. It's not even that we are doing a massive deportation. It is the threat that we want one or that one might happen down the line. Now, what is very real, even if the mass deportations are not happening, what is very real is that the left is shutting it down regardless. Even to the extent that there are large numbers of illegal immigrants being physically removed from the interior of the country, and 2/3 of them, most of them, do not have a criminal rap sheet, the Democrats are doing everything in their power to stop it. And I think this tells you something extraordinary about what the Democratic Party really is and what the left really is. Because for them, mass migration is a non-negotiable part of their vision, which is actually a little bit strange when you consider it. Because what are the fundamental planks of the Democratic Party? You could say it's about the working class. It's about American labor, like union workers, machinists, manufacturing workers. It's about public sector unions. It's about the poor. It's about the rights of minorities and women. And arguably, mass migration is not good for any of these groups. The illegal immigrants that come here get raped. The women get raped along the way. The illegal immigrants that come here are competing with our lower class that is native born for government benefits. There's only so many benefits and emergency rooms and public schooling to go around. They're in direct competition. They're also in competition for the jobs. And then when it comes to union labor, this is undercutting good, high-paying union jobs. It's arguable whether that's even good. And yet for Democrats, this is like a completely non-negotiable part of their platform. And it is absolute. They will entertain no limits on immigration, no restrictions on immigration, legal or illegal. It does not matter. They don't want to deport anybody. And that is effectively the policy under Obama and Biden. They were not deporting anybody. We talked about this last night. By the end of Obama's term, the only people they were deporting were illegal immigrants that happened to be arrested by cops for other crimes. If an illegal immigrant got picked up for murder or rape in the course of that other crime, and then the cops ran their information and determined they were illegal, only then were they deported. That's not really, we're not even really enforcing immigration law at that point. It's sort of like a salutary neglect. We're basically telling illegals, as long as you don't bother anybody, you are effectively given amnesty. And of course, this only intensified under Joe Biden. So like I said, this is an absolute totalizing policy. It's debatable whether this is even good for a good portion of their base. And it speaks volumes that when an administration even begins to undo this, look at the convulsion that happens. And I think what that tells you, what is conspicuous about it, what is suspicious about it, what is extraordinary about it, remarkable, is it tells you that clearly this is fundamental to what the Democratic Party is. Either ideologically, which is to say the Democrats, they actually want to destroy white America. Like in their bones, in their heart of hearts, they are grounded in their ideology by an animosity for white America. They view it as an imperative, as a positive good. It is like a mission that they make America a majority minority country. And if you press them, they will admit this. They see this as America's historic comeuppance. As a matter of fact, they see it as Europeans as a race, Christians as a civilization. They see this as historic retribution. They're motivated by this sense of guilt, of cosmic justice, that the white man had his chance, the white man had his time, committed so many crimes, and now the white man will get a taste of his own medicine. He will be put in minority status. He will be a victim of tyranny. He will be a victim of preferential treatment for another group, and so on. But it also tells you about how the Democratic Party functions economically and politically. They need illegal immigrants to win the elections. They fill these people up. They fill up these big Democrat machines, these big Democrat cities like LA and Chicago and New York with illegals, and that inflates their numbers. It inflates their numbers in Congress and in the Electoral College. Probably these people are engaged in a lot of voter fraud. Ultimately, these people have kids, and if Democrats are advocating for them, then the kids vote Democrat forever. And in the case of Minneapolis, it's a big part of the scam. If the illegal immigrants are stealing a ton of money, there's all these programs that are set up, all these entitlement programs, and they're administered at every level, municipal, state, county, federal government. At every level, there is a graft taking place. There's stealing happening. This is a form of organized crime, effectively. And like I said, we saw that in Minneapolis. That was a hot spot for welfare fraud in a much larger story about welfare fraud, which says a lot. And anyway, so we've been in this situation where there is just this extraordinary effort by the media, by the Democrats, the Democratic Party. It's all over social media, to even to the extent that Trump is doing the deportations to just get it to stop. Because if we begin to think in terms of a country, that we have sovereignty, that the citizens have a right to determine who gets to live here, who is allowed to enter, who is allowed to remain, and if people are not allowed to remain, then we have the right then to physically remove them. The Democrats don't even want us to go there. They don't even want 250,000 people kicked out. They don't even want the idea that we have a zero tolerance policy for illegal immigrants being inside our country. They can't tolerate it. So they've got this huge effort. And to me, this is really just the most fundamental thing. I said it last night. I said it the night before. It's really not that complicated. You have exactly two options, and there are only two. Either you deport every illegal alien, and you have mass deportations. There are tens of millions of people here. They have no right to be here. It's not legal. It is against the law. And we are going to enforce the law against them. We're going to pick them up. We're going to take them out. And we're going to massively deport every single one that has no business living inside the country. That's option number one. The only alternative, literally the only alternative, is that you get a mass amnesty. You're either getting a mass deportation and you're deporting all of them or most of them or a very significant number, or you have a mass amnesty. If you do not deport 30 million people or 20 million people or 10 million people, if you do not deport tens of millions of people, then what are you doing? You are giving amnesty to tens of millions of people. You are telling them, hey, you broke the law. You have no right to be here. You are here illegally. You are in the red zone. Return to the battlefield. You have 5 seconds or you're going to respawn. Like, you're telling 20 million people, we are not even going to bother to try to enforce the law. So those are the only options. There is no third way where we say, well, we're going to have mass deportations, but not for everybody or most people, and we're going to do it in a polite way. These are the options. You massively deport or you massively amnesty. how could it be any other way? There is literally no other way. They either get amnesty or they get deported. And what happens if they get deported is that it gets ugly. You cannot remove 30 million people from the country without violence. You just can't. It's statistically a necessity. Statistically speaking, it's not 1 in a million, it's 1 in 10 million. Do you think that you can remove 10 million people without 1 in 10 million? Think of the odds. Getting killed, getting beat up, getting falsely imprisoned or misidentified? The answer is no. So if you are down with mass deportations, well, then you have to be down with ICE. Because who else is going to do it? How else are you going to do mass deportations without immigration enforcement agents with guns and armored vehicles picking them up? And if they're doing it, yeah, they're going to kill some people, especially if there's an organized left-wing resistance. So when you think about this logically in a series of if-then statements, if these people will not be amnestied, then you have to deport them. If they don't want to leave, then you have to coerce them. If you're coercing them, you need a big armed force, overwhelming force with tactical gear and guns and armored cars to get them out. If you're using overwhelming force and violence, which is a necessity, some of them are going to die. And if some of them are going to die, then you got to be okay with that. You can't, when one person dies, chicken out and say, well, I was okay with violently removing 30 million people, but not if someone's going to get hurt. So what, now you're in favor of a mass amnesty? No, it doesn't work like that. You are either a woke, left-wing, anti-white piece of shit, and you want to amnesty 30 million non-white people that don't care about our country at all, or you have to physically remove all of them, and some of them are going to die, and you don't need to love that. You don't need to be celebrating that and saying, hooray, and another person was gunned down in the street. You can say it's a tragedy. You can say it's unfortunate. You can say it's less than ideal. But you have to tolerate it if you're serious. And that's really it. As far as I'm concerned, it's really, this is a fork, okay? If ever there was a fork, this is it. Because you think about what is going on in the country, and these non-white people, these illegal immigrants that have come here, this underclass, they just cannot be tolerated anymore. It's just, and if you have ever had a firsthand experience with it, it is ridiculous. These people come here. They take advantage of the system in every way. And there's something indescribable about it. There's sort of this intangible quality. There's this certain level of arrogance or aloofness or smugness, which they all have. They come here and they act as though, they feel as though the rules do not apply to them. For them, this is just how it works. You come here and you lie about being an asylum seeker. You come here illegally. You come here and then you get on some kind of a public benefit. You come here and you have 3 families living in a single family residence. You come here, some of these people that have been here, for 25 years, paying their taxes, working hard, they never learn English. How do you go to a country, you're here for 25 years, you don't pick up the language? No English, they say, no English. You're here for decades. It's crazy. And so we just can't be a serious country and tolerate this. Nobody wants to live with this. Why should we have to? There's one solution. Get them out. Get them out. And horrible things are going to have to happen. Now, this has been happening in the country. The Democrats are playing it up. The Democrats have mobilized their shock troops, these psycho radicals in the streets, interfering in these operations, trying to get ICE to back down. And we've talked about this. The purpose of the tactic is basically to create so much chaos and so much unpleasantness that the Trump administration decides it's simply not worth the trouble. Don't you realize that's the strategy? It's just a high-pressure tactic. you have these left-wing scumbags, and that's what they are. These are losers. These are bottom of the barrel losers. These are idiots. They are not smart people. These are people that are not successful. They don't add to society. In many cases, these are people that are insane. These are people that are mentally ill. These are people with mental disorders. They have BPD. They have depression. They've got serious issues. Because who else could it be? I mean, what kind of decent, normal person with any kind of conscience, with any kind of wherewithal, any kind of reasonable person, what person like that is in the freezing cold at 3 a.m. with a drum kit outside of a hotel where ICE is blowing a whistle next to a guy in an inflatable frog costume and people are playing trombones? Who wants to be a part of that? It's a freak show. And it's everything that any decent person hates, that any decent fascist hates. It's just chaos and disorder. It's a bunch of ugly freaks and weirdos screaming and yelling, lighting fires, vandalizing stuff, blowing stuff up. This is not a good scene. And anyone that participates in this is like a subhuman. Anyone that participates in this is a degenerate that is not really a part of our society. I mean, these are not normal people, okay? And I understand, don't get me wrong. There are liberal people, there are center-left people, there are normies, and many of them don't like what ICE is doing. And that's one thing. There are many people out there that maybe aren't sold on mass deportations and maybe they don't like what they see from ICE. But the people that are out there in the streets, that's a different category. The type of person, these like true believers, this bucket of people at the lowest level, filtered down, that are actually going to be deploying with the John Brown Gun Club, with the mission, and they're in the DSA. These people are lost. And anyway, these people are out there. And what the strategy is, in other words, they don't have power. These are not credible people. They are just out there to create so much unpleasantness and so much chaos that the government decides it isn't worth the trouble. That's what that is. If they are out there doxing ICE agents, if they are out there giving death threats to the higher level government officials, if they are out there in the streets vandalizing hotels, causing a scene in Target, if they are out there trashing the city, well, what effect does this have? The Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, representing Target and Marriott and Home Depot and all these businesses, they come out and say, hey, we got to de-escalate. Because Target doesn't want 50 nut jobs shutting down their store. And Marriott doesn't want 100 nut jobs banging drums and pots and pans outside their hotel, smashing the sign with a hammer. And, this is how this works. And the normies don't like it either. The normies in the city, they just want relief. They say, we don't want all this craziness. We don't even really have a strong position, but look, we want to go to work. We want to bring our kids to school. We don't want the ICE commandos driving through the streets, battling it out like Fallujah with Antifa. Like, we don't want to live like this. So they just make it unpleasant for everybody so that the administration decides it's not worth the trouble. And this is really the story of how our country has fallen, which is to say that you have decent law-abiding people. I would argue that's the silent majority, even non-white people too, even Hispanics, even blacks. In their heart of hearts, they really just want to go to work, make a living, send their kids to school. To the extent that they have a political inclination, they want prices to be stable. They want cheap health care. For some of these immigrants, they have a special interest. They want to bring their family in for chain migration. They're seeking paperwork and things like that. But what always happens is that whenever the normal people, the decent people, even if it's just white people, let's say, even if it's just taxpayers, if they want to appoint a government or elect a government to enforce the laws against BLM, against illegal immigrants, against government corruption, whatever it is, the Democrats' play always is just to cause a bunch of problems And the reasonable people back off. They say it's not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. What are we out here fighting for? What are we out here causing all these problems? You know what? Let's just stop antagonizing the crazies. Let's all go home and let's just not bother anybody. Let's chill out. That's always how it goes. And I've been saying for 10 years, we, the law-abiding people, we, the white people, we actually now have to become the unreasonable ones. We have to match their energy. We have to face them. We have to confront them in a showdown. And it's going to be a battle. I mean, both sides are going to take losses, whether that's political pressure, a lost election, violence, whatever. And whatever violence looks like. I mean, you know, whether it's the vandalism or it's an arrest, whatever. The law-abiding people eventually are going to have to stare in the face of the chaos. We're going to have to meet them on the battlefield and confront them and decisively win. That is what is required. And so this brings us to the situation over the weekend where this kid gets killed. And this is what I call that confrontation. We are there in Minnesota. We're barely doing deportations. The radicals are out in full force. Some of them are getting killed. Some people are getting arrested, like kids, and people are being misidentified, whatever. The mayor, the governor are emboldening the crazy people. So ICE is deploying thousands more troops. We're going in there. Then this guy dies. Alex Pretti dies. And our own side wants to undermine our political position. Our own side starts to say, hey, I'm all in favor of immigration restriction, but that was too far, and this and that. That was too far. That was too brutal. I don't support that. He was a citizen. He was a veteran. He was a nurse. He was a legal concealed carry permit holder. And I said this on Monday. I said it about Renee Good. If that's you, you are just not serious. You will lose. You have blinked. You're playing a game of chicken and you just lost. This is the fight. We are taking the fight to them to deport some illegal immigrants. They are resisting. We are putting down the resistance. One of their idiots dies, and now our own side says, all right, uncle, let's just surrender. Now let's talk about, because these two stories are related. So what do we find out now about Alex Pretti, the guy that got shot? Well, when he gets shot, what does the media say about him? Well, first of all, they produce an AI edited picture of him. Anybody catch that? So this guy is an ugly freak. He just looks like a freak. He's got unkempt facial hair, weird physiognomy. He looks like a weird dude. The first thing the media does is they produce this AI-enhanced photo of him that makes him look like a total catch, makes him look really handsome. This is what they do, okay? This is the facelift. Then, how do they portray it on social media? They say he was a veteran. He was a nurse. He was a concealed carry permit holder. He was a medic. This white U.S. citizen, a veteran, a healer, a medic, selflessly went to Minneapolis to look after his fellow citizens. And he was gunned down because he tried to protect two ladies that were being apprehended by ICE. That's the story they tell us. And this is a psyop, and it worked. And you have all of these like right-wing Trump supporters. You have all these macho guys, all these 2A guys, libertarians, far-right guys. They're all going, what the fuck? Our government, our surveillance state, our totalitarian police regime just gunned down. I don't care if he was left-wing. He was one of us. He was white, blah, blah. It worked. Well, what do we know about him now? Yesterday, we get a statement from his family. What does the family say? His own parents say he's acting really weird. His behavior is totally strange. He hasn't shown up to work in months. We told him not to confront ICE, and he kept going anyway. So this guy went off the goop. Maybe he was a medic, maybe he was a healer, until he decided to dedicate his life to being some kind of socialist revolutionary. So he was a medic and a veteran, but he isn't anymore. Now he is some kind of left-wing nut job that has dedicated his life to fighting for Somalian scammers. It gets better. Now we have a video that is resurfaced. It has been going around for weeks. Before his confrontation, which ended in his death over the weekend, he got in another altercation with ICE. There's at least one, maybe two other altercations that we know about. One of the altercations resulted in a broken rib. The other one was caught on video. This is from the New York Times. It says, quote, "The nurse who was fatally shot by federal agents in Minneapolis on Saturday was pushed to the ground by different agents at a protest 11 days before he was killed, according to a newly unearthed video that shows him spitting and cursing at ICE and kicking a taillight and breaking it on one of their SUVs. The footage adds to what is known about the 37-year-old nurse, Alex Pretti, who was killed by federal agents on Saturday morning after they pepper sprayed him and pushed him and a woman to the ground, a killing that set off protests in the Twin Cities and across the country. In the earlier incident on January 13th, Mr. Pretti, wearing some of the same clothing as when he was killed, can be seen running toward a street corner where a crowd of protesters have gathered and are jeering at federal agents. He screams at agents, "What are you doing here?" He repeatedly curses at them, spits at one agent as he is getting into a vehicle. When the agents drive away, Mr. Pretti kicks twice at one of the vehicle's taillights, breaking it. That seems to prompt agents to get back out of the vehicle and push him to the ground. The agents, some of whom are with Homeland Security investigations, hold Pretti on the ground for about 20 seconds before letting him go and driving off. As Mr. Pretti gets back to his feet, what appears to be a gun is seen tucked into the back waistband of his pants. During the later confrontation with agents in which Mr. Pretti was killed, he had a gun holstered on his hip. Okay, so I've seen enough. Fuck this guy. Seriously. He is not a hero. He is not a martyr. He is not a patriot. As a matter of fact, he shouldn't even be considered a citizen. Fuck this guy. And I don't care that he died. 100% justified. Good riddance. Bye, bye, bye. One less piece of shit in the world. Good riddance. This is not a nurse, a veteran, whatever. This is a psycho. Who does this? Think about how psycho you have to be. This guy is out there and can barely contain himself. There is no restraint. This is not normal. No normal person does this. You want to go to a protest? Knock yourself out. You want to get bundled up in your parka. You want to go and bring your coffee and hold up a sign. You want to go with a friend and make your voice heard. God bless you, honestly. That is your First Amendment right to speech, to assembly. We do live in a free society. Hey, God bless you. You want to go in daylight on a weekend or a normal day. You want to stand in a public place with your coat on and make your case. That is your prerogative. This is completely different. You have people going about their lives and in private, in conversations with coworkers and family and friends, they might not agree with what is happening. Some of them might feel very strongly and commit themselves to activism. Maybe they bring a box of Dunkin' Donuts to the protest. Maybe they make a sign and they go to the demonstration. Again, I don't agree with it. God bless you. This is somebody who is clearly on a mission. He is out there to confront law enforcement operatives. You know, that's different. It is one thing to go in public and apply pressure to policymakers and voters. In a democracy, we have a representative form of government, and we have elections. So if you want to go out in a public place that is owned by the people and you want to get your message out to prospective voters or to the representatives of the voters, again, that is how we do things in the country. But this guy is chasing law enforcement agents. Law enforcement is not elected. They are not representatives. These are people that have a job. These are people that have a job. They are public servants. They're working for the elected officials. And they are involved every day in life or death situations. Why do you think they carry guns? Because they are getting, in some cases, into violent altercations, physical altercations that could lead to death or serious bodily harm. So you have a guy he's not going to a protest. He's not a demonstrator. He is a terrorist. He is out there, he is an outlaw at the minimum. At the minimum, he is an outlaw. He is there to confront law enforcement and harass them, attack them, dox them, interfere in their operations. Do you think it's a coincidence that he happens to be at a place where a crowd of people is gathered around an ICE vehicle? Most people have jobs. Most people have a life. So how are you summoned to a random street corner where a group of people has spontaneously mobilized where ICE is carrying out an arrest? That means you are on top of it. You are in a group chat coordinating with people, sitting around waiting to be activated to go and assault cops. And then he sees cops. He is completely taken over by emotion, by rage. And you see the video, these are uncontrolled body movements. It's not like he's standing there holding up the sign and ICE is pushing them back or something like that, a familiar scene. No, he is aggressive, uncontrolled, unrestrained, flailing around, running up on ICE, screaming, "F you, what are you doing here?" Spitting on them, flailing, kicking their car, kicking a car. Kicking the car, breaking the taillight. That's someone who is insane. That is a violent nut job. And by the way, that's a crime. Spitting on a cop is assault. How is that a protest? Spitting on cops that are leaving the scene. It's not like some guy is brutalizing you and in an act of defiance, you are aggressively running towards ICE, confronting them as they leave, spitting on them, screaming at them, kicking their vehicle and breaking it. This cocksucker should be in jail. Those are multiple crimes. I mean, you could throw the book at this guy. None of that is legal. None of that is defensible. Who behaves like this? They throw him to the ground and then they let him go. They throw him to the ground and then they let him go. And by the way, he does all this with a loaded gun in his waistband. So imagine you're a federal cop. You are federal law enforcement representing the United States of America. Some deranged lunatic is running at you, screaming, spitting, kicking, and he has a visible loaded gun in his waistband in his pants. What are you supposed to do? Now, in this situation, they throw him to the ground and then they let him go. This tells us so much. One, it tells us everything we need to know about this guy and what he was doing there and what his intentions are and what his end game is. Now we know who this person is just by that alone. But then it also tells us something about ICE, which is people are saying this is an uncontrollable Gestapo made up of undisciplined thugs. If that's the case, why didn't this guy get arrested? He assaulted an officer. He vandalized their vehicle. He's got a loaded gun. They apprehend him. They let him go. He didn't get punched in the face. He didn't get kicked in the teeth. He didn't get put in handcuffs. He didn't get taken away. He didn't get shot. Now, there's another story that he got thrown to the ground by ICE in a different altercation and broke his ribs. So this guy was just doing this. This is a profile now of a guy who went crazy, stopped going to work, became part of some kind of political operation of activists that are resisting the government. And he was irregular. He is regularly getting in physical altercations with cops, clearly getting thrown to the ground all the time, spitting on them, and he's carrying a gun. And he was doing it multiple times. I guess he just did it one too many times. How many times you want to roll the dice like that? If you are making a habit out of aggressively confronting police officers while you are armed and assaulting them, yeah, eventually you're gonna die. I mean, obviously. And do you know what this reminds me of? This is no different than the black people. This is no different than BLM. Do you remember when we were being told about police brutality? The cops are the new Ku Klux Klan. Their job is not to enforce the law. It is to keep black people down. They're arresting vandals and murderers and thieves. They're there to keep black people down and prevent them from having opportunities. Remember this? They said, why is it that there are so many police-involved shootings of black people? So then, all of these different states mandated body cams. And what did we see once every cop got a body cam? Once every police officer got a body cam strapped to their chest, did we see a bunch of white racist cops giggling and laughing with each other about how they're going to oppress blacks every day? No, we see them going to black people that they're driving down the highway with their taillights busted. They get pulled over, they roll down the window, a stench of weed is emitted from the car. The black person is not cooperative, says they're not going to give him an ID. They run the plate, it's a stolen car, the license is expired. There's some sort of problem. The guy's got a rap sheet 3 pages long. Then they go to apprehend the guy, and the guy takes off running, or he reaches for a gun, and then he gets mag dumped. Very different picture. And it's the same thing. You go, okay, so, you're not being pulled over for driving while black. First of all, your taillights are busted. So, that's a start. Then you don't have your paperwork in order. Then you also have a warrant. You're doing drugs. And to add to all that, you're not even cooperative. So the cops are doing their job, pulling you over. They find out you got to go to jail, and then you want to run. Then you want to run, you want to make a move, and you wind up dead on the side of the road. And at a certain point, people say, okay, so what's the expectation? How many times, how many layers, how many times you want to roll the dice? How much do you think you can get away with here, actually? It's the same thing with the black people. Okay, so you got all kinds of vehicle violations. You have drugs in the car. You got a warrant out, and you're not cooperating, and you're resisting. And people go, shoot him in the leg. Well, they didn't have to kill him. Well, why'd they shoot him 20 times? They should have shot him, like once and then seen if he was okay. No, at a certain point, you got to start handing out the death penalty. We don't want to live in a society with people like this, and you just can't. And by the way, think about it this way. You're in the middle of the story here where a police officer is in a fist fight with some criminal that they don't even know who it is. I prefer that law enforcement walk away from this encounter than a criminal. That's just me. If you're a cop pulling some degenerate over on the side of the road and you get in a physical altercation and you're rolling around, one person is in the wrong. And one person is a public servant, okay? One person is a cop representing the people of the state or the city or the country, and the other person, 9 times out of 10, is somebody who is in the wrong, either because they did something wrong or they have no respect for authority. You can challenge anything. We have due process. We have a 5th and 6th Amendment. You want to fight your charge, you want to fight your case, okay, go to court. Go to court. You don't get in a fist fight with a police officer, a screaming match. It's just not how our system works. So when I see a cop and a criminal rolling around on the ground, one person is in the wrong, either for doing something wrong or because they're resisting the authorities, and the other person's a public servant. If push comes to shove, I prefer that the civil servant walks away because one of them is putting their life on the line every day to enforce the laws. One of them is essential for the maintenance of order, and the other person is doing the wrong thing. So this is what happens with Alex Pretti. Guy gets killed. And what's the next step? The media creates this image. They AI enhance the image. They face tune him. They make him look like a Chad. They give this sob story. He was a nurse, a medic, a tireless hero, a veteran. And all of the conservatives eat this up. They say, oh, poor guy. Oh, he got treated badly because he's white. Oh, it's such a sad thing. We find out the guy's a complete scumbag. So that was a lie. And then when you look at the bigger picture here, when you start in the beginning of the story rather than the middle, you realize it was only a matter of time before this was going to happen. Maybe his SIG didn't go off accidentally this time and a mistake wasn't made. How many times do you think you can aggressively run up on a cop, assault him with a gun in your pants and extra magazines in your car before you get blown away? I mean, honest to God, how many times do you think you can get away with that? How many times do you think reasonably you can do that and never have any consequences? And it goes back to the same thing with Renee Good. When, if ever, are there any consequences for anybody in this society? You come in illegally, you can't be deported. You broke the law, but they say, oh, well, but they've been here a long time, but they're a nice guy. Okay, but they shouldn't be here. You're a Somalian scammer. You're taking $8 billion from the state. Homeland Investigations comes in, and that is who Alex Pretti attacked in this instance. So again, there's no accountability for scammers. Then you get the nut jobs that show up, like Renee Good and Alex Pretti. They want to get in the face of police. The lesbian wife is saying, come and get it, big boy. Drive, drive, drive. She goes to run over a cop. People say, well, you didn't have to shoot her. Alex Pretti's running up with a gun in his waistband. Well, you didn't have to shoot him. He was disarmed. Oh, sorry, they didn't see that when they're being surrounded by nut jobs blowing whistles. At a certain point, there's got to be accountability. And this is what is so saddening about all of it, is when do the law-abiding, decent people grow the balls to say, you know what? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. We need that kind of fortitude and conviction behind what we are doing to say, you know what? I can tolerate this guy dying. It just speaks to how weak our coalition is. We don't want to win. We don't want to win. We're not taking it seriously enough. If one of these people dies, people go, all right, well, let's just give up. We got 50 million illegals in the country, whatever the number is. It's so corrupt. It's so bad. Like our country is gone. Venezuelans are taking over apartment buildings. They're stealing shit out of your car. It's burglary crews. They're looting the welfare system. One asshole dies and conservatives want to lay down and say, never mind, forget it. Just let our country go. I don't want to see another protester die. And you go, wow, we have no stomach for this. And that's when you realize we shouldn't even start fighting if we can't take the heat like this. Then it gets better. So get a load of this. Now the Democrats in the Senate are going to shut down the government to impose restrictions on ICE. It's literally George Floyd. George Floyd is a scumbag, dies because he is stupid. Everybody says it's brutality, so what do? We handcuff the police. Body cams, abolish the police, defund the police, put restrictions on them, and what do we get? Crime everywhere. Crime wave. Same story. Some scumbag dies because of his own stupid decisions. Everybody freaks out. Now what are the Democrats doing? They want to defund the cops, body cams, take their masks off, put the handcuffs on them. So Friday, there is a deadline for a $1.7 trillion appropriations bill. It funds a half dozen government departments and agencies. In order for the bill to pass, it needs 60 votes in the Senate. Republicans only have 53, 54 with a tiebreaker. So they're going to need 6 Democrats to come over and vote for this thing. They were going to vote for it. After the death of this protester, the leader of the Democrats, Chuck Schumer, comes out and says, we, the Democrats, will not supply the votes unless we separate the spending bill. We'll pass the spending for every department and agency except for DHS, except for Homeland Security, which runs ICE and Border Patrol. They said because we will not fund Homeland Security unless they put restrictions on ICE. So they say to avert the government shutdown, let's vote on every other spending item. We'll save Homeland Security for later because we don't want to give them another dollar until they agree to put these restrictions on how ICE is handling these operations. And among the demands, they say they want ICE to take off their masks. They want ICE to wear body cameras. They want to take away some of the funding. They want to make it so that ICE cannot make an arrest without a warrant from a judge. This is just some of their demands. This is a story from the New York Times. It says, quote, Senate Democrats on Wednesday demanded that federal agents carrying out President Trump's immigration crackdown take off their masks and stop warrantless searches and arrests, laying out a list of conditions they said must be attached to a funding bill for Homeland Security ahead of a Friday shutdown deadline. Senator Chuck Schumer, the Democrat minority leader, presented Republicans with a specific proposal that Democrats said they would insist on in exchange for their votes. In addition to a prohibition on federal officers wearing masks, they also demanded that the agents wear body cameras and carry identification. Their proposal would put an end to roving patrols and require warrants issued by a judge for arrests and searches. Democrats also want the federal agents to be subject to the same use of force policies that apply to local and state law enforcement, which require those involved in violent incidents to be subject to independent investigations if they are accused of wrongdoing. He laid out the demands the day before the Senate was scheduled on Thursday to take its first procedural vote on a spending package that includes funding for Homeland Security, as well as the Pentagon, State Department, and Treasury. If Republicans can't muster 60 votes to advance the legislation, which would require the support of at least 7 Democrats, it will stall with little more than 24 hours to go before the shutdown deadline. So the Democrats want ICE to be banned from wearing masks. They want them to wear body cameras. They want them to have to go to a judge to arrest or search anybody. They want them to be subject to an independent investigation if they're accused of doing something wrong. This is BLM. This is literally BLM. It's the same story. And do you know what the result is going to be? If even one of these policies passes, that is the end of deportations. It's over. Because do you know what happens? If ICE takes off their masks, then everywhere they go, they're going to be doxxed. And these cops, that's what they are. They're cops. They are going to be threatened at their homes. Their families will be threatened. They will be threatened with being unemployable, in the future. If ICE takes off their mask, every time they conduct an operation, a left-wing shithead will be there taking a picture, posting it on the group chat, saying, does anybody know this guy? Then they're going to find him, get his address, they're going to find his family, find his kids, find his wife, find everybody he knows, put it on an Antifa website, and then they're going to email the guy, and they're going to say, we're going to kill your family, we're going to kill your kids, we're going to come to your house. That's what happens. And what ICE agent is going to do their job or even stay on the job if this is the risk level? Nobody's prepared for that. I mean, these guys are making how much money per year? 90 grand? I don't know what an ICE agent makes. I think it's more than your average cop. They're making 80 grand, 100 grand a year. You can't afford security like that. You don't have options. You can't live in a gated community. I mean, these are working class people. So you're screwed. Okay, now body cameras. Body cameras, honestly, might be an improvement. That's how it was with cops. Body cameras are going to show you the kinds of things that they're facing. But even still, that's a level of self-consciousness. Cops are going to be reluctant to do what they got to do. Sometimes it gets hairy and sometimes it gets ugly. and a body camera makes you hesitate. Every time you pull the trigger, every time you draw that weapon, and that puts you in a deadly situation because you can't hesitate. You got to be willing to let the chips fall where they will. So what does that mean? It means they're not going to put themselves in harm's way. Same thing with the independent investigations, all these other limitations. This is about handcuffing ICE. This is about making it so that they can't go after every illegal immigrant. It's meant to slow them down. If they got to go to a judge for every warrant, if they got to go to a judge to search somebody, arrest somebody, they can't get 4,000 warrants every day. They can't get 2,000 warrants every day. That's going to grind everything down to a halt. Then they do their operations. They're not going to put themselves in a situation where they're bound up by rules of engagement and body cameras and they don't have the masks on. This is about ending the deportations. And it's the same story. And if you were one of these right-wingers that played up this Alex Pretti situation, you are a part of this. You did this. You fell for it again. This is the equivalent of posting the black square after George Floyd. This is the equivalent of hands up, don't shoot. Colin Kaepernick taking the knee. This is the same exact thing. You are sympathizing with the enemy that hates you. These left-wing nut jobs, they don't play by the rules. They are not honest. They are crazy. And they hate you. When Charlie Kirk got shot, they were celebrating. They loved it. Teachers, nurses, people that should know better, people that are educating your kids, people that are taking care of your elderly, they were on TikTok publicly laughing and celebrating that Charlie Kirk got shot in the face. And they did that because they're so proud, have no shame, and they think it's acceptable. They didn't even think twice about posting it because they said, of course we're glad this guy got blown away. That's who we're dealing with. If they had it their way, you would die. If they had it their way, our country would be destroyed. And you were crying over them because you said it's about the principle. Because you said, hey, well, I don't care what his politics are. He's an American. No, you do need to care. If your politics are mass amnesty and stealing from welfare and spitting on the police, I actually do care then what your politics are. I actually don't care then if the cops kill you at that point. You're not within your rights. You're not a good citizen. You are not in any way, shape, or form on our side. There is no sense of, hey, we're all in this together. He's a fellow citizen. He's a fellow white man. No, you're not. I don't identify with this person at all. F this person. I don't want anything to do with this person. I don't want to live next to this person. I don't want my kids to be in a hospital where this person works. I don't want my elderly parents to be in a hospital where this guy works. I don't want to be this guy's colleague. I don't want anything to do with this guy. F this guy. This isn't, think about it. Who does that? You are in Minneapolis in 0 degrees, LARPing as a revolutionary, fighting with the cops every day. This is a scumbag and a loser and the enemy of society. Fuck him. People are crying over this guy. They say, hey, at the end of the day, we're all what? What do you mean? I mean, that just means nothing anymore. That doesn't mean anything to me. He's a nurse. Okay, so are people that perform abortions. He's a doctor. So what? He's a veteran. Again, so what? You have people graduating the military academy that they say they're communists. I mean, literally, so what? If you're out there agitating for mass amnesty and anarchy and socialism, and you're fighting with the cops and you think Trump is Hitler, it's like, I got nothing to do with you. I have nothing in common with you. You're not on my team. As a matter of fact, you're my enemy. And they are the enemy. They are voting for this. Who do you think it is when you get doxxed and there's all this pressure to get you fired? Who do you think is making the calls? When your relative gets kidnapped by an illegal and chopped up and put in a bag, who do you think is standing in front of ICE to make sure that guy doesn't get deported? When another Democrat mayor gets elected in your city to make it so that there's crime everywhere and the city slides into chaos, who do you think's voting for that? Who do you think is donating and who's in the streets for the protests? It's people like this. They are tangibly out there to ruin your neighborhood. It's real and imminent and tangible. They are the shock troops of this machine that is ruining your life. And people want to divorce it and say, well, they're not the hand of the system. They're literally the hand of the system. They might be getting the money from somebody else, but they're doing the dirty work. They're the ones getting in the scrum and fighting, and in some cases dying, to make the situation so unpleasant that we don't deport anybody. And if we don't deport these people, by definition, they're going to kill more Americans and rape more people and steal from people. If you have a criminal underclass of illegal aliens that have no paperwork, and a lot of them are committing crimes, and if they don't leave or get deported, statistically, some of them are going to keep committing crimes. Every one of those crimes that they can commit because they haven't been deported against a native population, you can thank these protesters for that. You can thank these protesters that are so extreme. They are not playing by the rules, following the law. It's not constitutionally protected. We won the election. That has consequences. This is all under the jurisdiction of the feds. And some shithead is going out there breaking every rule, every law. They have no decency, no respect. They are vile human beings. And they're throwing down their life to ensure that more Americans are hurt by people that shouldn't be here. Fuck them. Don't cry when they die. And here we are a couple weeks later, and people want to say, oh, well, I didn't know that he was actually some nut job. Of course he's crazy. And now the Democrats are going to use this. Okay, they got what they wanted from you. They got enough idiots to go online and say, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. I support deportations, but not like this. Now the Democrats are going to say, we won't fund the government unless you destroy ICE. And then there's no deportations. Then they get their amnesty. It's what it is. We cannot be the stupid people anymore. We cannot be the suckers. Don't you realize that by now? It's called taking your own side. Who are the people that care about you? Who are the people that are fighting for your interests? Who are the people that are talking about these issues? Who are our people? That is who we need to care about. That is who we need to protect. Now, that doesn't mean that everything is justified against our enemies. I am a Christian. But we also have to be very practical and realistic about the conflict that we are in. No one is saying we need to go door to door killing every liberal. But we are enforcing the law, and if some psycho gets in the middle of that and they happen to die, well, you can say that that's a tragedy, but I also think that that is something that is just going to have to happen. That is going to have to happen over time. If they are in the way, well, get out of the way or face the repercussions. And it's shocking how many people do not have the conviction to understand that. It's very blackpilling. The amount of people I saw on the timeline that fell for this, I see a guy like Dave Smith I was pretty animated about, and I like Dave. I have to say that every time because it's a very sore subject. If I disagree with somebody, but if I don't, totally ball wash before, then they say, you're attacking a guy for no reason. I like Dave, love him, everything like that. But he posts this tweet. And he goes, ICE are pussies. They're thugs. I support deportations, but not like this. It's like, Dave. Hey, man, Earth to Dave. This is an intervention. You're a libertarian, right? You want us to have liberty in the Constitution. How do you have liberty in the Constitution? We have 30 million illegal aliens and birthright citizenship. These people don't speak English. You think they're going to protect the First and Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights? You think they're going to protect any of that? How does that make sense? Even if you're a libertarian, we got to get these people the fuck out. You're a libertarian, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. You think you got a right to run up to a cop with a gun and spit on him and kick his car? Dave, they got to die. Dave, my friend, they have to die. They have to be killed by the cops. Even a libertarian should be able to recognize when somebody should be killed by the state. Guys like Dan Bilzerian, Jake Shields, they go, well, but ICE was trained by the IDF. Who cares? Who cares? If the IDF is training ICE to kill shitlibs, hey, well, at least they're learning from the best, man. Honestly. Wake me up when they're killing anti-Semites. Then I'll have a problem. You know? So, I don't know. I've been doing this show for so long, and in some ways we've come a long way. In other ways, you go, when are people ever going to learn? But that's ultimately the problem, is we don't want it bad enough. They want it, and they are so extreme, unscrupulous, fanatical, and many of them are, like I said, they're just crazy. And we over here are reasonable, and we want to play devil's advocate, and we want to, put the shoe on the other foot. We want to play and say, well, what if we were in the other person's shoes, and talk about double standards, fairness, and, we think about how we can avoid being hypocrites. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. And if we lose, we die. We lose, our country dies. So I've seen enough with it. But this needs to be drilled into your head. Renee Good, fuck her. Fuck her. She's another George Floyd. Good riddance. These stupid idiots. I said the other day, they're writing in her eulogy, her lesbian wife or something writes about her, she sparkled. I'll pull it up. This is how ridiculous these people are. Let me read you the statement. I got to get the whole thing. Let me see if I could find the whole, because it's like, this is who we're dealing with. He's going to find the whole transcript. Yeah, here we go. This is from the lesbian partner. She says, first, I want to extend my gratitude to all the people that have reached out. The kindness of strangers is the most fitting tribute, because if you ever encountered my wife, Renee Nicole Macklin Good, you know that above all else, she was kind. Kindness radiated out of her. Renee sparkled. She literally sparkled. I mean, she didn't wear glitter, but I swear she had sparkles coming out of her pores all the time. You might think it was just my love talking, but her family said the same thing. She was made of sunshine. She lived by an overarching belief. There is kindness in the world, and we need to do everything we can to find it where it resides and nurture it where it needs to grow. We were raising our son to believe that no matter where you come from or what you look like, all of us deserve compassion and kindness. She lived this belief every day. She is pure love. She is pure joy and sunshine. We had whistles. They had guns. Okay. Like you're a baby. We just want to be nice, and we're made of sunshine, and we sparkle, and we're made of rainbows. These people are lunatics. These people are stupid lunatics. And if we let them have their way, it's all going to go. Like everything that we have is going away. These are not serious people. They cannot run our country. They cannot look into the face of evil, which comes in the form of chaos and lawlessness and disorder and crime and cruelty, and defeat it. People look at these ridiculous people, Renee Good and Alex Pretti, and they say, my goodness, it's a tragedy. We're all humans. Tucker Carlson says a woman was killed. This is a tragedy. A nurse was killed. These are two 37, 38-year-old brainwashed, psycho progressives getting in cops' faces. I know I've said it over and over, but, I have no sympathy after everything we've seen about them. And unfortunately, there's this time delay. It's no different than George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and the rest of them. You get this sob story. They pull on our heartstrings. They guilt trip us. They create this fiction about who these people really are. just long enough for us to put the handcuffs on ice. And once that happens, you're never going to get a bill that unleashes the police. You know what I mean? You're never going to get in a situation where we put body cameras on the police and we make them accountable and this, that, and the other. And then the bill passes that says, you know what? Take the body cameras off. Let the cops go crazy. You're never going to get a bill that says unleash the police on the citizenry. You're never going to get Republicans or anybody in the state government and the federal government saying, so we have a new bill. It's called Unleash the Government, and we're going to take the body cameras off. We want less accountability. We want cops to get away with things. We want them to be as violent as possible. Like, you're never going the opposite direction. So this is what they do. They blow up a sob story about the enemies of humanity just long enough to put the handcuffs on the police, and then it is over. And then you just get crime and disorder and decay and chaos. And then people are left wondering, hey, what the hell happened? Then you get these boomers with their hands in their pockets outside on the sidewalk getting their paper, talking to each other saying, hey, man, I don't know what it's going to take to change this. World keeps getting crazier. How do you keep falling for it? So people are just not prepared for what is necessary. People are so afraid of ourselves. You know, we need Greenland, we need Venezuela, we need mass deportations. Like, we need to use the state and power to make the world safe for ourselves. It's that simple. But people don't want to do that. People are still living in this fantasy where we're going to reach across the aisle to these people that hate us at the UN, in Congress. We're going to go to these third world shitholes. We're going to go to these Antifa drug dens, and we are going to find common ground by being sappy and soft and weak. And I don't know, we're going to blame the Jews for all the problems. And I know how that sounds, but that's literally what they want to do. You know, a guy like Jake Shields and Dan, they say, oh, well, you know, the Jews are the enemy, not the left. It's like, yeah, the Jews are one of the groups that is hurting us, but so is the left. The idea that you're going to shake hands with some white leftist the white leftist wants you dead too. We're going to say, hey, man, let's just team up against Israel. It's not going to happen. We are in a war on all fronts. Mark Levin wants us dead. Alex Pretti wants us dead. Chuck Schumer wants us dead. Shapiro wants us dead. They all want us dead. So stop sympathizing with them. Take your own side. That's the message, always. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, but that's that. I do want to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about all this. Now we know the whole story. Now it's just not even debatable. And I hope everybody realizes, as always, we were there first. All the low IQ anti-Semites were trying to tell you, no, ICE is controlled by the IDF. Oh, this person was a citizen. Now you know. Now we all know better. It just took everybody 2 weeks to figure out what was obvious from the start. All right, but let's take a look. We'll see what you guys have to say about all this. We're going to read through these super chats. I don't know how people don't see it at this point. All right, let's see.
Hi, we're going to get right to it, man. A lot of the things that Nick says is hard to hear, but it doesn't take away from, let's say, a logical argument with a lot of this stuff. You know, a lot of the things that I'm hearing come across as insensitive, you know, with certain ways he may reference, whether it's Alex Pretti or Renee Good. And I think it's framed in a lot of frustration and just with this left versus right mentality that we continuously talk about, where Nick genuinely believes that this is war and this is us versus them and people need to die in order for us to win. I tend to just look at it differently. And this is why I try not to get into the whole right versus wrong with a lot of this stuff, because it allows me to see things with a certain amount of clarity that I believe otherwise, if I was leaning into the Democrats or leaning into the Republicans, that I wouldn't be able to see.
Even something as simple as, criticizing a eulogy. It's like, bro, like everybody says things in their eulogy that probably people in the funeral are looking like, yeah, I don't know about that one. But it's just obviously something that bothers Nick. And perhaps it bothers him because of some legitimate reasons. He sees these people as a threat to the democracy of the country, as a threat to white Christian nationalism, as a threat to the white genocide that a lot of people have talked about, whether it's Tucker, whether it's Nick. Across the board, people talk about how white people are going to eventually become the minority. And I have a question to ask on that later. And I'll ask it now, but then hopefully we'll elaborate on it later if I remember. But my question was, if white people become a minority in America, will you still support it? Not asking Nick. I mean, Nick, whatever. Nick can answer if he ever sees it. But for y'all, I'm just wondering for y'all, if white people become a minority in America, would you still support it? If through whatever measures that it becomes more multicultural, the culture of America changes, and that's just what it is, will you still support the country? I just wanted y'all to think about that. And then maybe we'll talk about it a little later because I think I have it in my notes. So we'll get into that when we get into that. But going back to Nick's mindset, his mindset is that somebody has to die. People are going to have to die. He said that he has no sympathy. This is a huge difference between me and Nick and I. I have sympathy for Renee Good. I have sympathy for Alex Pretti. I have sympathy for a lot of the ICE agents in certain situations, or empathy perhaps more so for a lot of the ICE agents. I don't have the sympathy because I haven't seen an ICE agent be killed or harmed in a particular way. Do I have empathy when it comes to Alex Pretti and Renee Good? I have more sympathy for them than empathy. It's more of a feeling bad for them rather than understanding. I understand how they can get brainwashed, but I don't have the understanding as far as I relate to their understanding. So I perhaps maybe do have empathy, but I don't see things the same way that Alex Pretti and Renee Good see things. Now, that doesn't mean, and this is perhaps a lesson for some of us, that doesn't mean that I have to lean all the way into an opposing direction. A lot of people may see that as what Nick Fuentes is leaning in. I don't lean all the way over there. And when I say that I have an issue with Alex Pretti and Renee Good, I've had multiple arguments, especially I'm a conservative Black guy. I have a lot of my most, I don't want to say heated arguments, but arguments that are going nowhere, or debates that are going nowhere, or conversations that are going nowhere, and also debates that actually become a bit racist, I would argue, from people who are trying to passionately, aggressively fight racism. Now, what do I mean? I have conversations with a lot of white liberals, and it's specifically white liberals who believe that they are good people. And I believe that a lot of them are good people. And they'll tell me all the things that Black people need from Democrats, from the government, in order to be successful. They'll tell me how DEI and affirmative action are great things for Black people, and we need to provide these social programs for a lot of these people that unfortunately were just born in a society that is unfair to them. And I call BS on it every time. They'll argue with me. I'll tell them like, yo, providing somebody a crutch is actually hurting them more than it's actually helping them. This has always been the strategy. When you go back to Lyndon B. Johnson, the social programs were put in play not because of we just wanted to do something great for Black people, but the social programs were put into play because they wanted to control Black people and wanted Black people to depend on them. And like Lyndon B. Johnson allegedly said, this will have N-words voting for the Democratic Party for the next 100 years. Well, can't say that he was wrong. So a lot of these arguments, when I'm talking to white people, I'm like, yo, you're telling me I'm a Black person. My dad was born in the South Bronx, the youngest of 9 kids, the only one not born on a sharecropping farm. Went to college, became an attorney. My mom, like, just to give y'all a little bit of insight, I come from a lot of and perhaps this is why my mindset is what it is, because I have a lot of first in my family, and I hate the whole first black person to do this. I hate all, but at least the one thing that it does do is it shows you that you can be somebody's victim and you can lean into it and you can be right, or you can become your own hero, step out there, not listen to all these people telling you that the world is unfair and all this other stuff, and go get whatever you want. My grandfather was one of the first black principals. He actually played professional baseball, signed a professional baseball contract, walked away from it when he got injured with the New York Giants at the time, and he became a principal. Was one of the first black athletes at Seton Hall. Led it in 3 sports, I believe. And my uncle, my great uncle, was the second black baseball player after Jackie Robinson, Larry Doby. So I've had a lot of these stories in raising me in a lot of ways, to where I just never believed in the boundaries that people supposedly set for me just being black in America. Fast forward, I also had parents that jumped out there, took risk, and showed me at a very young age that they believe in me. And they didn't bring me up with this mindset that, oh, you're black, so you got to work twice as hard and all this other stuff. I just didn't grow up like that. I knew from a very young age that I can be just as successful as any other white kid or any other culture of kid in my class, whatever else. That's what I genuinely believed. And I realized that me having that belief largely actually determined what ended up shaping or becoming my reality. But when you convince a group of people that they are oppressed and it's not their fault and they can embrace this victimhood because there's no way that you can be successful without getting this help, without getting this aid, when you convince black people to do that, then it ultimately hurts that black person. Now, these white people that I'm having these conversations with, genuinely in their heart, they may feel like they're doing something good for black people. Perhaps they grew up in a family where they understood that the mindset of that family was more of a racist mindset. Hey, we're going to not do anything black. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Because when I tell them that, no, this is hurting black people. This is not how you raise your kids. A lot of these people that I'm talking to, they're successful parents. And one of the things that they struggle to do, and one of their greatest challenges, how do I teach my kids these values and lessons when I've been providing so much for them, things that I actually had to go out and get on my own? So I tell them to apply that same logic when it comes to black people. Okay, it's tougher, so what? Figure it out. That's human nature. That's what you do. You adjust to your situation. You adjust to your environment. But when you give people things, people adjust to that as well. They become entitled. They rely on a crutch, right? What is it called when you no longer use your muscles? Atrophy. But when you use your muscles a whole lot, what do you get? You get stronger. I've had certain mentors that have told me that people don't even realize, like, if you grow up in a tough, difficult situation, you don't even realize the opportunities that you have just based on your upbringing challenge you in ways that perhaps that person with that easy upbringing was not challenged in. But the problem is when you merge that challenging upbringing, but convince those people that now they're entitled to something, that now they're owed something. That is what has destroyed the black community for a very long time. See, we didn't have a lot of these issues that we had when even you look at Jim Crow era, you look at a lot of these different things. Now, of course, things weren't fair then. You wouldn't say that they were fair or righteous or right or whatever, however you want to describe it. However, it was very clear that for black people, if you wanted to become successful, you couldn't be dependent on any other thing or any other person. And you know what? You had to figure it out on your own. And a lot of our great grandparents, they figured it out on their own. A lot of our grandparents, they figured it out on their own and had less opportunities than we have. And we don't even take advantage and are doing worse than what they were doing. Why? Because we have this crutch. Why? Because we're growing up in a society to where people in the Democratic and Liberal Party, whenever they're running for president, what do they start talking about? Reparations. But then they get in office and there's no more talk of reparations. They are playing us. They are playing us. So I've almost developed at times a certain resentment for people that have that type of mindset. And it's more of the resentment towards the white liberals because I'm like, damn, here you are. You've corrupted my mind. We talk about oppression and slavery, bro. You've enslaved my people's mind to the point where they don't even feel like they can accomplish anything without your help, without your political party's help. I don't like that. There's nothing more dangerous to Black people than people who are pushing Black people to be victims and to wait for a savior to come save them rather than them just becoming their own savior and taking responsibility for their own lives and the outcomes that they experience, the opportunities that they're able to gain. So I just want to say that up front. However, once again, I still have sympathy for Alex Pretti and for Renee Good. To me, there they are, these extreme liberals that go crazy, that stoke the fire that they're actually claiming that they're trying to put out. You claim you're trying to fix an issue, but you're actually feeding more into the issue and creating more problems for everybody than what you think you're actually doing. Now, I'm not talking even about them specifically. I'm talking about people like these radical white liberals. And the reason why I say it's radical white liberals, not Black people, because this is actually a good example to explain what I mean by that. Black people who behave like Renee Good, Black people who behave like Alex Pretti, especially in this new video, you're expecting to get shot. You are. Now, I'm not saying that it's right. And I'm not saying that this new video of Alex Pretti, it doesn't change anything for me based on that day of that situation. Just because somebody did something 2 weeks before doesn't mean that it's justified for them to get shot here. Now, some people may not agree with that. Now, what it does change for me is if I thought that he was a silly person, now I think he's a idiot based on how he was behaving. If I thought that he was a silly person before, or like, yo, this seems kind of dumb to be doing, now he's an idiot. All I have to do is look at his behavior. Now, that doesn't change the play-by-play as far as what I've seen thus far on how he was, in my opinion, wrongfully killed on the day that he was killed. He was behaving worse this day. Matter of fact, if they was gonna, well, I don't want to say that, but he was behaving worse that day. But once again, I still have compassion just from a person losing their lives. I don't know what Alex Pretti's mindset is on. I don't know what Renee's Good is mindset on. They may have felt passionately that they were doing something good. Just like a lot of the people that I argue with, a lot of the white liberals that I'm talking about, they actually feel that they're doing something good compared to a lot of their friends and other people that may be in their circle that may lean more conservative. They think they're doing something good. And whether they think it or not, it doesn't even matter. I still have a certain level of sympathy. The only way that you wouldn't have sympathy is if you look at this as if you're just completely numb. And I've gotten to the point where I've been numb from a lot of these shootings and stuff like that. Sad to say, you hear of a shooting where initially it used to like, oh my God, like, damn. And then it gets to a point where it's like, where I can feel myself not being as connected with what's going on because I'm numb to the situation. And that will maybe in those type of situations, I don't have as much compassion as perhaps I would have in other situations. But once again, I can still have sympathy for those people. I'll give you an example. George Floyd. When I initially saw the George Floyd situation, I thought it was messed up. I thought what the cop did was messed up, bro. You killed that man. Then when I received new information, hold on, but even during at that point, what's funny about that point, I remember during that situation when everybody was going out there protesting, I'm like, yo, what are y'all doing protesting? Like, yo, y'all just gonna allow this situation. I knew the play. So even though I thought that it was a messed up situation, I knew the play and how they would try to politicize it, especially when you had people stuck in the house. I remember going to the park to work out during this time, and I was the only person in the park, and a cop told me I had to leave the park. But this is at the same time that they're allowing people to march and protest for George Floyd. And I'm like, yo, this is all they're just playing us. They're playing us against each other. They're trying to create this chaos because chaos, no matter who causes it on each side, it provides an opportunity for the people in power the political leaders and the people they serve to exert more power, to gain more power amongst or dependency by the people on the people in power. It allows them to be played one way or another. That's how they gamed us and fooled us with convincing us to get that dumb jab in our arm. And now it's coming out that, hey, it should have never been called a vaccine, right? People are coming out saying, medical professionals, the guy that was the former CDC director, he just came out and said, yeah, it should have never been called a vaccine. This is the guy that was before Fauci, I believe. Or was Fauci the former CDC director? I think he was only the director for a few weeks before he had got fired, or they had a new one come in before they actually released it or something. He was only, I forget exactly what it was, but the former CDC director, he just came out and said this. So let me get back to the point that I'm saying. So I can remember during this George Floyd situation where I had my homegirl who's Indian and Black, and she mostly, I think before this, and that's my homie, she leaned into being more Indian and embraced that side of her, similar to Kamala. But then during this situation, I remember having conversations that it's like, yo, if y'all don't like, does everybody on you and your team and like the people that I'm a business development consultant, so I'm an independent contractor, but I connect people. So if I connect this group to this group, I'm the kind of middle person. But I remember them saying, like, do you and all those people that you work with, that you connect me to, do they support George Floyd? Do they support Black Lives Matter? And I'm over here like, whoa. She's like, well, if they don't support Black Lives Matter, then I can't work with you. And I'm like, I don't support Black Lives Matter. And I told her, I'm like, hold up, like you do realize that you're talking to a Black man saying this. like a Black man that has never been able to hide behind or embrace my Indian side. Like, people see me and they know, yeah, he's a Black person. He's a Black guy. So I've always had to live in this way, not going over here, not to say that you're taking away your Black credibility and all that, not doing any of that. But it was just the reality of the situation. Now, at this same time, I also remember people on the other side being super insensitive, like in a group text that I was in, where it's like you're kind of mocking the death of George Floyd. I'm not on either one of these sides. And when I looked at the George Floyd situation beforehand, when I thought that, like, yo, this is messed up, then when Candace Owens put out her documentary, I had no idea that George Floyd was on fentanyl. I had no idea that he was in the car of his drug dealer when they tried to grab him out, or when they did grab him out. I had no idea that there was a fentanyl pill with his saliva on it in the car. I had no idea that when he was screaming for his mama, that he was actually screaming for his girlfriend, because there was police body cam footage of it a year before where he was talking about he calls his girlfriend mama. But the media was trying to portray it as if it was just a Black guy calling for his mother. I understand that all of that went into, in my opinion, to giving Derek Chauvin more time locked up than, in my opinion, he deserved. I think all of those things factored into it. I thought that Derek Chauvin was solely responsible for George Floyd dying, but then when I got all this new information, I'm like, hold up, I got sympathy for this dude. I got sympathy for him. Now, even though I may have still believed that, yo, bro, what are you doing? You got your knee on his neck or upper back, as the documentary just showed, but it doesn't matter. Like, why do you, like, bro, this is just completely insane. Like, what are you doing, bro? Is this the protocol that y'all? So I still had all these criticisms. However, I still had sympathy for him, because I could look at it, not looking at it through a lens of, oh my God, I'm Black and these people are trying to kill us and da-da-da-da-da. And I also didn't look at it from the other perspective, just on Derek Chauvin's, like, look at this Black dude. I didn't need to look at it any of those type of ways. I just looked at the situation. I wasn't drawing a conclusion based on my political affiliation or an agenda that I was tied to at the time. I was just looking at it the same way that I'm just looking at these situations. So I had sympathy for George Floyd, and I have sympathy for both of them. I'm telling y'all, this is probably going to be one of those takes that a lot of people are going to call me and Uncle Tom for when it comes. You got sympathy for Derek Chauvin? Yeah, I think with Derek Chauvin, it's very simple for me. I'm talking about for me. initially the information was presented in one way where I thought that he committed a homicide. Now, with new information that came out, when it's obvious, when you got people saying that George Floyd was had enough fentanyl in his system to where it could have like killed a horse. Well, obviously, with new information, shouldn't things change, or should you still be in your mind? No. I adjust accordingly. And perhaps a lot of the reason why I'm able to do this is because I don't have this us versus them mentality. I used to have this mentality when I used to look at a lot of these situations when I was on my Dr. Umar Johnson, like, you got it, like black first and everything else, after that. No, I don't. That's not how I live life. That's not how I choose to live my life. I base my people not on skin color. I'm not a critical race theory type of guy. I base my people based on principles, morals, and values, bro. That's my people. If you align with my principles, morals, and values, or if I feel like you're challenging me to upgrade my principles, morals, and values, I rock with you, bro. You my people. So while there's groups and stuff in like Arkansas, they building these white-only neighborhoods or Christian neighborhoods, I don't care about your skin color. I don't care about your religion. I don't care about that, bro. What are your principles? What are your morals? What are your values? So that allows me to approach things with a bit more clarity for me. I'm not saying that anybody, if you have a different opinion than me, then you're just not seeing things clearly. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for me, it gives me clarity because other than that, I'm not able to remove bias when I found myself locked in with a particular group, a particular agenda, or politically leaning one way or another. So obviously this is different than Nick. Nick has his view of looking at it. And I do understand a lot of where Nick's coming from, where even when he says you got two options, either you deport every single illegal alien or you do mass amnesty. Now, I don't look at it just like that. You know what I mean? I could say, okay, you deport every single illegal alien. Maybe you can actually start with the criminals. Maybe you can start with the criminals. Maybe you can figure out a way to work with law enforcement locally to figure out a better approach, a safer approach, not only for the civilians that are protesting or are not protesting, but also the ICE agents. Maybe you can just create a safer environment. So there's different ways to go about each thing. I don't look at it the same way as Nick. Yeah, people got to die. If you're not cool with people dying, then you're not really cool with mass deportation. I think you could do it a different way. Shoot, how did the deporter in chief? Maybe Trump should call up Barack Obama, figure out how he was doing it under the radar as the deporter in chief. I don't know. All I know is that there can be some coordination that is better than what we're seeing right in front of us. Now, are there going to be accidents that occur? Yes. But can we minimize those actions? So maybe it's not 2 deaths within, a couple weeks. Maybe it's not as aggressive as that. And maybe the police can get in the middle of a lot of these situations. I find it very hard to believe that people can't do a better job. But when you just blanket it and say, yo, either you cool with this or you're not cool with mass deportations, then it takes the challenge that should be on law enforcement to do the job in the most efficient way. And when I say efficient, most effective in not harming and causing dangerous situations for the public. It's not even like this situation is so dumb with the Minnesota police not even getting involved because of politics, where Tim Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis are not even allowing the police to work in coordination with the ICE. Like, that's ridiculous, bro. You should be up for impeachment. You doing stuff like that. You should be up for impeachment if you're doing stuff like that. You should lose your job. And if cops don't go over there, don't support, and you're telling them, hey, this is gonna present the safest thing, then cops should be fired. And if cops don't believe in what they're being told to do, then maybe they should quit. Stand up. Take a. Hey, there's a lot of people when it was this time when they were trying to enforce the jab to be where they made it mandatory. A lot of people lost their jobs. They figured it out. They stood on business, said, I'm not taking that. They were rewarded in the end because they got all that payback. When you believe in something, stand on it. You got to be willing to lose something to stand on something, right? If it's that important to you. So I don't, and I've already been rambling for so long. Nick paints the picture, talks about Black issues, and, initially my initial response, and this is something that a lot of people feel probably, you initially want to defend right? You initially want to defend your people. And we can bring up a lot of different instances where people didn't conduct themselves in the best way or put themselves in perhaps more dangerous situations than they otherwise would have been. I would like to share that Philando Castile was not one of those. And I think that was in Minnesota. That's why it kind of came to mind when we were talking about it earlier on the show. But, people should be accountable for their actions across the board. Everybody should be held accountable for their actions. That's why when I look at this situation, it's like I'm watching a tape. You ever watch film? If you watch film and the team that's playing, you may have bias. So I'm going back to when I was playing ball. You watch a team, you may have a certain bias, or that's your team you're watching the film on. But if you were to just remove the jerseys, the names, and just just critique the player, the play on the field, you would have absolutely no problem calling out, oh, nah, that quarterback made a bad throw, or no, oh, that guy missed a block, or oh, no, that guy missed a tackle. You're able to call out both. So I just look at this situation the same way. What are some things? Look at this situation. How could it have been prevented? There's things that Alex Pretti could have been done differently. There's things that Renee Good could have done differently. There's things that the ICE agent could have done differently. There's things that the Minnesota police could have done differently, like show up. There's things that Waltz, the mayor, Donald Trump could do differently. Instead of going over and being so concerned about Iran and what's going on there, come and address the civil war that could potentially be brewing in Minnesota, because you're sending these ICE agents, in my opinion, on a dummy mission. And that's one thing that I do agree with Nick. You sending these ICE agents and Greg Bovino on a dummy mission where they don't even have the support of the local police. You know that the politicians are rallying up the people to give them as hard time as they can. Like, come on, bruh. Everybody, this is what's so dope about holding everybody accountable. You don't have to pick a side and be rooting for this like a sports team. Save that for sports. You don't have to be a fanatic or a fan of any of these people or any of these parties, bro. Just look at it. What is the overall goal? This is why I always say, my goal, I understand that it may not be seen as realistic to a lot of people, but it really is for us to just live in harmony, bro. Not to see everything from a critical race theory mindset, not to see everything how we've grown up when it comes to these politics, looking at everything versus left versus right, Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative. There are other ways to see things. Not just to see everything as Islam bad, Jewish good. We support Jewish, we support Israel, Islam, Muslim bad. Like, there's different ways to look at things. And then one thing, the last thing that I'll touch on is Nick bringing up the doxing argument when ICE takes off their mask. Police don't wear masks. So why should the ICE agents wear masks? Nick said that the ICE agents are making more than the police. So I'm not for the doxing or not for like the mask. And I also don't know if Nick's argument holds up when he's talking about, well, these people are going to now lose their jobs and lose opportunities. Well, based on like the Shiloh Hendricks situation, like the society has a way of correcting itself. Like the market has a way of correcting things. So and you can call it a miscorrect. The market has a way of leaning things one way or another, balancing things, counterbalance, however you want to describe it. Let's not get too caught up on semantics. But people were getting pissed off with a lot of people being canceled, right? And then Shiloh, what was her name? Shiloh Hendricks, the one that was in the park, and she called, I think he's actually a Somalian kid. She called him the N-word. You saw how much money she was able to raise? Now, on the other side, you'll get, maybe people will say, well, Carmelo Anthony with Austin Metcalf, he was able to raise a lot of money. Yeah, but when it comes to law enforcement, I don't necessarily believe that you should be able to have on a mask. We understand the risk that you're taking. And I also believe that Trump and these politicians need to do a better job of getting America on board with supporting our law enforcement even more. Law enforcement needs to play a role in that. Your job is to serve the people. You got to figure out a way. I've seen certain cops in certain communities that figure out a way to improve the relations between them and the people living in the community. There has to be that. And when I say there has to be that, otherwise, then it's just going to lead to more of this. I can remember talking to somebody that was pretty high up in the police in my town, and something was brought up with young kids. This was after one of these shootings or something like that. There was like a town meeting that I got invited to, and the police officer was saying something like, yeah, it's like those kids born on that side of town, like they just grow up hating the police. Da, da, da. And I'm like, well, like, that's a pretty slanted way of looking at it. Like, you could look at it from a few different angles. And even if you are right when it comes to that, okay, with that being said, how do you now still serve them? How do you figure out a way, because they're still paying you with the tax dollars, so you still owe the town, you still owe the community. How do you figure out a way to improve that? Should the teacher just come to school and be like, yo, these kids are idiots. They can't learn. I'm not teaching them. They shouldn't even have gotten to this grade. I'm not teaching them. Or should a teacher say, okay, boom, this kid's struggling. Let's figure out a way to help this child learn. And maybe y'all are just looking at me like a pansy. That may be the case. I'm cool with that. But this is just the mission that I choose to be on. And it may be unrealistic, not likely. That's cool. But for those that are on the same mission, I'm sure y'all may or may not feel me. But hopefully we can figure out how to get this movement going, because like I said yesterday, and like I've said on other shows, if we weren't born and indoctrinated into this society that we're living in right now, an alien who's never seen, doesn't know what's going on, they're looking at this and say like, yo, this is completely like, how could you get to this place? We would see this as unrealistic. But our choices, our decisions, how we view the world, they've landed us here. So here we are. So to each their own. And I'm not even sure if I addressed everything that Nick went through, but Nick addressed everything that, he wanted to address. And I just wanted to share some thoughts with y'all that I was having during, watching him speak, and just some things throughout the last few weeks, and just share with y'all a little bit of my experience and how I've gotten to this point to see the world how I currently do. So as always, appreciate y'all. Like, leave a comment. Let me know where I messed up, where I'm talking crazy, or where I'm being a sucker. Let me know, as y'all always do. Turn your notifications on. Don't just subscribe. Turn your notifications on. We're doing something dope here. We're bringing together people to have these conversations, keeping them respectful, and with the intentions of building and growing together. So I'll see you on the next one. Ew.
TB, GI, TC. It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, DC. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly, Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family.
And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM for that. LBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that.
I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all, along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.